for the sake of the public record, let's call this meeting to order. It is 6:21. We're only 20 minutes late, 21 minutes late. And this is the Economic Development Committee meeting that was originally scheduled for Tuesday, the 16th, but because of snow, was rescheduled for tonight. And so, first up, and by the way, we, shall we do just a roundtable?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just introduce myself.
Yep.
I'm
Check
Dennis Price. I am the manager of Cumston Hall, and though I am not a voting member of this committee, I am very excited about the prospect of helping develop the economic plan for Monmouth and having Cumston be a part of that.
All right, and next we have,
I'm Doug Ludwig. I'm the member of the select board.
and a duly appointed member of this committee,
Yeah,
voting member.
I'm
of
a
this
voting
committee.
member of the Economic Development Committee.
And to my right,
I'm Reagan LaRochelle. I'm the Economic Development Consultant for Monmouth.
there you go, and I'm Ken Ackley, chair of the committee. And so, because we have three voting, oh, and online we have Garrett. Garrett?
I'm a member of the committee.
All right, Garrett, Peterson. And so, with three voting members in attendance today, we have a quorum, and so we're able to conduct some business. Not earth-shattering business, but at least we can consider approving the minutes, and that is the next item on our agenda.
I love it. It's just moving them right through. I love
There
it.
we go. So we have in front of us minutes from our December 26th meeting. And looking for feedback before I ask for a motion.
That's what I remember, so I motion to approve.
Okay, I hear a motion to approve
I like that.
and a second by Doug. So a motion by Garrett and a second by Doug to approve the minutes as drafted from the December 26th meeting. Any discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor? Garrett, it says yes. Okay, so the motion passes. And so next on our agenda is an update on the Main Street TIF amendment and the proposed 202 TIF district.
Yes, so we talked about in December that the Main Street TIF district that was approved in June, the DECD requested that the town remove enough property to put the district in statutory compliance. And I guess I'll back up a little bit and say that we approved the TIF district in June and everything was fine, but we are now fixing a mistake from a prior amendment to this district where the state approved too much acreage in the district. And so we are not being penalized for that, but we are being asked just to take out a property, a piece of the properties that are in the TIF district. So last meeting, we talked about that parcel that we're removing. I think it's map 14 lots 7, which is 11 acres. And it's underneath some of the power lines and right near the Monmouth border with little to no ability to be developed at any point ever. So that's a very safe parcel to remove. And I guess the only change is when I told the TIF administrator that Monmouth was planning to vote on another TIF district coming up in March, she then said, wonderful, instead of just removing the parcel the way the workaround that I suggested, I'd rather you do it legally, which is by vote. And so I said, of course, we will do it the way that you would like.
Yeah.
And so she was going to try and give us a little leeway, but since we have the vehicle to do it legally at this next elections, she requested that we do it this way. So it's neither here nor there. It's not going to be any type of issue. The voters are just going to have to vote on it. Again,
Is it just sort of like a technicality kind
it's
of?
absolutely a technicality
Yep.
and nothing that we did.
Mhm.
So it's just, we're just kind of trying to appease the state at this point and make her feel comfortable. So, so that's the Main Street TIF amendment. And then that follows that we had, approved, an application to go to the select board for the Route 202 TIF district, which we've been working on for a while.
Mhm.
And Doug signed a request to DECD for us to be able to vote on that new TIF district also at the presidential primary election, which is March 5th. The advantage to that is that you would not have to hold a whole separate election prior to the March 1st deadline for all TIF districts. You can always request an extension for the month of March. And so we did that so that you guys don't have to run two elections, within a short time frame from each other. So that's approved. The public hearing notices are ready to go. And I believe at your February 7th select board meeting, we will be holding those two public hearings for the TIF districts and then voting on them in March. So I'll be here to explain, what the TIF districts are. If any members of the public have any questions or comments, then they're able to talk about it at that time.
One tidbit of news when I brought that up at the last select board meeting is the interest in including the Jellystone property in the Route 202 TIF district.
Okay,
So in the map that describes that, just as a courtesy to them and a minor change to the 202 plan. And some of that, I mean, may turn into nothing.
Right.
Because the amount of improvements they're planning is pretty minuscule, tens of thousands of dollars, not much.
Not a big picnic basket,
Not a
but a
big picnic,
smaller picnic
tiny.
basket.
But at some point, they might find themselves between a rock and a hard place if the other bordering towns give them a hard time with their plan. In which case, the plan could change, and in which case, we might be well positioned to capitalize on it. So there's a maybe.
So any property that is owned by, I'll have to figure out who the owner is in that part of town, what their name is. I will add to the TIF district and the lots.
Adjacent lots, things like that. Yeah.
Okay, I'll work on that.
I think there's one parcel over there that is, it's right near that area that was foreclosed on by the town for taxes. And it's in limbo because the former owners are no longer.
Hmm.
And they had no heirs. And so technically it's in possession of the town, but no other claims on it.
So is that the property that needs to be included, or that's a different property that they wanted included?
That's a separate property, but it's adjacent to the Jellystone property.
Of course,
There'd be a process for,
the former owner of that property, their daughter would like to buy it.
so there are other interested parties involved. Okay,
Okay, so I should be including that property as well?
Yep.
So two properties. So I'll amend that, and then I can send out the public hearing notice. So I have to have the application completely complete before the notice goes in the newspaper, because at that point, technically, anyone can go to the town office and request to look at the draft
Mhm, sure.
application. So,
Love it.
good stuff. All right, so that's the update for that. I will update that and get that public hearing notice out.
Good.
Great, okay. Okay,
Okay, next up on our agenda is Monmouth Economic Development SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. This is part one.
right.
So
So,
I don't
yeah.
know how many parts.
well, yeah, hopefully it's two parts.
One of blank.
But, so last meeting, we talked about, what this committee wants to do around goals and, goals for the town. And, what followed from that is maybe we should do a SWOT analysis to figure out what we have to work with at this point in the town. And so what I suggested was we could do a, SWOT analysis today. There may be some things that I need to get more information in terms of, certain town functions, if people aren't familiar or haven't gone through the process of permitting or anything like that in the town, then that would be important to make sure that that's consumer friendly, et cetera. But I thought we would start with doing a SWOT today, and again, if any questions arise, then we can gather more information for the next meeting. But
Good. So based on, can I make a motion to table the item for next month? Is there a rush? Just without Dan here and myself not really thinking about it fully. I don't know, unless there are items that we certainly want to address. That's the only thing I'm thinking.
Another point, I guess.
yeah, there's two, there's two, we can do it. We can wait until next month for the whole process. We can also start the process. I can send notes out and people can add to what we come up with today.
That makes sense to me.
Or either way, however you want to do it.
Well, maybe we call this part 0.5.
Yeah, I
And
think you're right.
we
I
can
mean, it's
start-
good to have.
I'm sort of imagining, Garrett, that maybe some of the things that we could discuss tonight on this issue have to do with like, how do you, let's back up for a minute, rather than just tell us what the strengths are, let's back up and sort of think about how would you make that, what are the categories that we're even thinking about?
Yeah.
Right? So Reagan here's got some good categories that are a start. So our infrastructure, our education system, public safety, parks, new business and job environment, that kind of stuff. Those are good categories to start off with.
Right, when because again, we're talking about economic development and we all say economic development, but what is it really? What's the real definition of economic development? It's more than just having jobs come to Monmouth.
Business.
Yeah,
It's
right.
more than just business.
Right, so,
right.
it's actually kind of a quality of life in Monmouth, which obviously a lot of times is very connected to business and resources,
Right.
in the town.
So then, we do this analysis that says, what does Monmouth do well? What are our shortcomings? What are we not doing well, that we know of? How can we exploit our advantages to succeed? And of course, we kind of need to understand what those advantages might be. And then, what could cause problems? What are the threats?
And I think the other question that this committee needs to think about is whether we're doing this from the perspective of you as literally the town, as in the town office, the town of Monmouth, or if we're looking kind of generally at all of Monmouth and talking about strengths, weaknesses. I'll just start, a weakness of the way Monmouth is laid out, the downtown is very far away from Route 202. So I would say that that is a weakness in terms of, a downtown area.
Right.
type of
Even
thing.
though we can't help it,
Right,
right?
you
It's just,
can't
that's
do
just,
anything about it, and it's not
geographic.
necessarily the
Yep.
town's. It's nothing that the town is offering or doing, it's just kind of how Monmouth is,
Right.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah.
so are we talking about government that we're doing a SWOT analysis
Got
of? How government, plays into economic development, or if we're just talking about the town of Monmouth, we
town.
have a lot of lakes that, bring a lot of tourists, I mean, that has nothing to do with the town, maybe
I-
having public access to those lakes would be something that is a town function. So I just want to make sure that we're looking at it from the same perspective, whatever we decide it to be.
and
My perspective was almost, sorry.
no, go ahead.
My perspective was almost, what is the SWOT analysis of this committee? Like, how could we improve, how the funds are dispersed amongst town? And I mean, maybe it is maybe we start larger, like Reagan's saying, but that's what I was thinking with the SWOT analysis.
So Garrett, that's a really good observation, and I think that gets, I think one approach would be to start big and to
Yeah.
sort of say, here's where we stand in our general environment in central Maine, right, as a town of Monmouth. And then to get, start to break that down into things we do have control over and some of the tactics that we might be able to use as town government to sort of take advantage of our situation.
And that would likely be we might be able to pull opportunities into that, what can.
Sorry, my second question is gonna be, is this a voting item? Do I necessarily need to participate? Cause I did have to make dinner tonight.
Nope.
So that's not a problem.
This is not a voting item.
Okay,
So-
are there any other remaining voting
No.
items that I should be?
Get out of here.
Okay.
But can we at least, I mean, if you're gonna go, I'd still like to maybe make sure I understand, maybe talk about some of these, like, and just to make sure, because I did kind of write some stuff down already.
Cool.
Is that cool?
Yeah, we're gonna
Thank you,
continue
Garrett.
the conversation, Garrett. So we
Okay.
will come back to
I'll
it.
watch it on YouTube.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
All right, see
You're
you guys.
welcome.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Okay, so what I heard was we were going to look at it as kind of a larger town of Monmouth.
Yeah, I
Like,
think
you
that
know.
would be, maybe I've mixed a few too, to cover functions of the government.
That's okay, I think that's fine. But we just, if we're doing all of Monmouth, I think we can be broad.
Okay, good.
Ken, I don't know if you want to go to the other side of the table.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
I can see what's going on.
Do you want me, I can also rearrange, okay. Make sure you.
Okay. So, when you have your paper, see. Dennis is using his paper
Okay. Got my paper going.
fully.
Got my paper.
And I'm sometimes, I'm gonna put up a couple pieces of paper, because sometimes people will be talking about strengths, and then we really
Yeah.
feel like that's an opportunity. I don't want people to have to forget what they're, so we'll see if we have enough room with all of this. We start with Monmouth's strengths. And again, from the context of economic development and what does Monmouth do well or offer, I would say, that we consider a strength.
I would say provide services. The public services in town are extensive and good. I mean, we have fire,
Let's break that down. Yeah.
rescue, police, public works,
Transfer station.
transfer station, which is part of the public works. There's also all of the public works carries all the roads and the plowing, right? So there's a lot of things that come in town that are included in in being in Monmouth.
Well, public works, fire, police, public works.
Transfer station.
Transfer station, yeah.
And that's kind of, I would say, I agree, and I would say that for a town of our size,
Without a doubt.
I mean, I know in
Without
the
a
town of Litchfield, similar sized town, maybe slightly
Sure.
smaller.
Couldn't do it.
They don't have half of that.
Nope. No, neither where I live either. So that's perspective. So that's why I see it and I'm like, that's, to me, that's a huge strength that not everyone can afford to do that. And whether or not that translates then, because I know that it's, does that translate into, they provide a lot of services, so that means the taxes are high, so then we want to stay away? Or is it that they provide a lot of services and we need a lot of services to feel comfortable and bring my staff to this place, right? So that, I see it as a strength. I do. I'm glad we agree on that. I like that idea.
So we're not really considering things like a library or,
Oh, no, put the library in there.
Yeah, that's that's provided service. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What other services do you see that?
well, the public beach. And with the programs that are there.
Yeah.
So,
So recreational,
yeah.
Yeah, I put natural resources as a separate, because I think that's when you start to get into like, it's good that Monmouth has all these lakes and stuff. But you're right, that's a public owned beach, right? There's a couple of them in town, from what I understand, maybe 2 or 3.
North Monmouth.
So, beach recreational opportunities, part of that natural resources aspect, lots of water.
So, so maybe there's a separate category of strengths, which would be,
Municipal strengths,
holdings that we have so much coastline.
Yeah.
In the interior coast of Maine, right? This is, and go along with that would be public access to it. We've got-
Absolutely.
How many boat launches? 1, 2, 3,
I was just trying to count up the lakes.
Cobbossee, Cocknowagon, Annabeth, well, actually, that's in Winthrop, but Annabeth has public access.
Wilson.
Wilson has public access. Am I
Yeah,
missing any?
it's at least 5.
We've
4 or
got,
5.
we've got lakes, 4 lakes with public access.
Yeah, that's good. That's amazing. That's amazing. To me, and maybe this is where we jump over, the only thing missing from that natural resources and all that shit are trails. That's a weakness of Monmouth, the dearth of trails.
So it's interesting, and I agree, we should talk a little bit about trails
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a weakness. Because we've got plenty of snowmobile trails.
Absolutely.
So
But like-
snowmobile trails
Right,
don't get a lot of use when there's no snow.
no,
And
Is Whittier Woods.
Whittier Woods, yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
And then.
That'll
there's
be it.
the,
That was-
The bird sanctuary.
the bird sanctuary in Whittier Woods.
Yeah, Whittier Woods, exactly right. Bird sanctuary in Whittier Woods.
But nothing that's interconnected.
Yeah, like you can't walk from one end to Monmouth. You can't walk, unless you get on the sidewalks, right? But then that's only the downtown area.
And
Camp Cobbossee has connected Whittier Woods with some of their trails.
Uh,
do they allow the public to use them?
Yes.
I
During-
wasn't
not
aware of
like,
that.
maybe not
Me too.
during the camping season.
They're there,
But off-season.
like Mechuana does something similar in Winthrop, yeah. Yeah, but that idea, it's, yes, I agree. I like that. That's where I.
And I would also say, and I think this is a really important thing, that we have 0 ATV trails, 0.
Which is weird, very strange to me.
I mean, we've definitely got people interested in creating
Yeah.
them.
And you have but there are snowmobile trails and there is a snowmobile club in Monmouth, yeah.
And there is an ATV club,
Okay.
only they have no trails.
Okay.
And can I just point out that the way things are going, I'm thinking if someone wants to be outdoors in a wintertime, in 20 years, it's gonna be on an ATV, not on a snowmobile.
Agreed. I think the snowmobile is gonna go the way of the dodo.
The snowmobile's gonna go north.
North,
This-
further north.
The
Yeah,
snowmobile's
because
gonna
I
go
mean,
to,
my God, what a terrible year to
Canada.
buy your first snowmobile this year. But terrible,
well, I mean, last year was the same.
exactly. Unless you take them north, but you're right, it's north.
But well, they'll just, the snowmobile trails will turn into ATV trails. The
Yeah.
only reason we can't use them now is because of that the state gives us money back from the registration.
Yeah.
And that means that they can't be used by ATVs.
So there's
Are you
some sort
sure?
of mechanism that
Well, I'm
keeps
not,
You
Yeah.
sure about that? Because I
the
mean,
registration.
I think I'm
I,
sure.
I think there are a number of barriers about why we don't have ATV trails, and some of it has to do with like, stereotypes of ATVers versus
Well, 'cause-
snowmobilers.
Right, because one bad moron ruins the rest of the ride.
Right, so then we get a lot of opposition from property owners who are scared to give permission about ATVs because they think they're gonna tear the place up and be out of control and, to be the Wild West and oh my God, the sky is falling. And the reality of it is, if you are mobility impaired in the wintertime, you are not gonna be riding a snowmobile, you're gonna be riding an ATV.
True.
And that, if you are mobility impaired and you wanna be outdoors, that's gonna be the future, is
Yeah.
ATVs.
And when we talk about ATV, it's not like a four-wheeler. Now we're talking about side-by-sides,
Yeah.
those sorts of things, where it's like, it's basically a four-wheeler with a cab. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And that's what, that people love them. I mean, you go, they're in huge demand.
Yeah, they got heated seats
Yeah,
and,
the whole nine. yards.
windshield wipers and
Oh,
all that stuff,
It's
right?
unbelievable.
And I mean, the big complaint that I've been hearing is like, they're too big, like the trail's not wide enough for this ATV.
Yeah,
Cause people are trying to jam these giant ATVs down these small trails.
right. And they're not.
Because that's the way they can get outside, because quite frankly, they can't walk, they
Yeah,
can't hike.
Right. So they gotta be on
So-
some kind of, yeah.
They gotta be on something that's mechanized,
Yeah.
and
Feel that.
that's why I think we, as a town, need to be sort of rethinking how we approach trails. And that's not to exclude anybody, but
Yeah.
just to include everyone, which
Yeah.
is multi-purpose trails.
Yeah. The
And-
hope for the trail behind Cumston is a good example. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That wouldn't really make sense to be an ATV trail.
No, because
But it would make a lot of sense to have it be wide enough and secure enough so that if anybody wants to get down there who has a walker or a wheelchair, they can still be down there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's exactly what I think of. And I think you're right. It's like, I love the idea of creating the opportunities where they can exist. And there's plenty of places in this town.
I was just checking to make sure that all terrain vehicles was on the recreational trails list, and it is.
Good.
So,
and I think we specified that they would be like general purpose, like,
yes, we kept it general purpose, but for, which may include, it's the which may include is the, and then all of
The
the.
legalese of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's allowing.
I put, even though it might be away from 202, I did put that one of Monmouth's strengths is it has a definite downtown. Right, with the beach and all that. I mean, it's like, when I first came to Monmouth, I remember like, this is adorable, like, this is amazing, I love it.
village, it's a
It
village.
is, it's an absolute village, and you can get pretty much anything you need in that village.
Oh, actually, and we should add to our public services that we've got a medical center.
Yes, good call, totally forgot.
And that, we've got a couple of sort of convenience-y stores,
Absolutely,
a
of
gas
course.
station.
I mean, you got more than that, right? Well, downtown, I guess, you're right. But I mean, with Dollar General makes a huge difference, even though, how you feel about those stores and their practice. It still is providing a service that otherwise wouldn't,
I mean, I think Compton Hall ought to get a special mention on the
yeah,
strengths.
somewhere in there. That's another municipal owned thing that I think helps. I mean, it's just such a huge draw. It's such a uniquely huge draw. No other town has such a cool thing. But arts is great, because I think theater at Monmouth, but I think that's part of Compton Hall. Theater at Monmouth is absolute strength of this town. You know what I mean? To bring people in and to have, have a built-in 55-year summer stream of folks, I think is pretty good.
And I think we should probably mention the museum, the downtown museum.
Uh-huh.
As
Now, a
as
lot of
strength.
museums downtown now with the new fire department thing is gonna take
Exactly.
place. So there's a lot of tourist sites to see and to learn.
mentioning trails, to go back to that.
Yeah.
The museum has often talked about making a trail from along the brook there by the blacksmith shop down to Lloyd McCabe's thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe further down, going along the brook. Walking path.
Hmm.
Good. I think that's a great little spot down there for it, right along that brook. But that's exactly the kind of thing where, you know, eventually you could connect. One of the things that is a trail that goes from Berry Road behind Cumston all the way downtown. You know, that's a long way out, but just the idea that it can happen. There's room, there's space. And then the last thing I put in terms of strength was, I think, and this is outside of public realm of things, but I think the education, like Monmouth, you know, having K through 12 and Monmouth Academy and Monmouth schools are a big asset to our town. Even though I know, you know, regardless of how you feel about RSU2, whatever, you know, it's still, as it's always been, a draw to the school, to the town.
Well, that in the addition of the new special ed folks.
Yes,
In the
yeah,
old, in the old
exactly.
school.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we kind of have stumbled upon an educational district
Without a doubt,
in Monmouth,
without a
right on
doubt.
Academy Road.
And it's, to me, it's fantastically, now with the addition of the new school, everything is on the same side. It flows together pretty well. The only real issue, I think, is the afternoon pickup, which is kind of like shuts down Academy Road. But that's, you know, that's, people figure it out. But having everything together is great. Those are mine.
Okay,
Education, natural resources, provide services in
I
downtown.
don't know where this fits. One of our, I don't know if it's a weakness or a strength or where it goes. We don't have a huge amount of industry in Monmouth other than Tex Tech and the Bates Mill.
Mhm, yeah.
That really hasn't changed for decades,
Agreed.
right? Before Bates, we had,
It was a cardboard place. Well, that was
it
years
was
ago.
the solar panel place, Dumont
Okay.
Industries,
Gotcha,
right? I
gotcha.
mean, that building turned in from Dumont Industries
To- it was-
eventually into
yeah.
Bates.
They made, I remember taking a trip in there because they made, cardboard circles. I've never in my life seen so many cardboard circles. It was for a business after hours. And we went there and it was just, that was their thing. And it was like, they put them at the end of carpet.
That's what they manufacture. Guess they're really good at that.
You know, and all I kept thinking was today on how it's made, you know, like, cardboard circles. But yeah, you're right.
I don't know if, you know, when you think about the economics of Maine's future,
Mm,
I don't know if a whole lot of industrial development is really, intensive industrial development is really gonna be part of what we do.
don't think so.
When you look at how sort of Maine in general is positioned in the larger economy, our natural competitiveness doesn't really have a whole lot to do with industrial stuff. Because our electricity costs are high, not much we can do about it, because we have cold winters, not much we can do about it. And that means heating costs are generally high and attracting gobs and gobs of people
Yeah.
to do stuff is high. But what we do extremely well in Maine in comparison to the rest of the country, and I think Monmouth is well positioned for this, is that we steward our natural resources extremely well. If you look at, let me give you an example, the water quality issue. Like the quality of the water in every one of our lakes, right? When we get a visitor from anyone south of, well, from Massachusetts south, they go and they look at a lake like Annabessacook, which by Maine standards is kind of okay. They go, oh my God, look how clear the water is,
right.
right? I mean, Waranacook is far and above, Cobussy far and above Annabessacook. They're looking at Annabessacook
Yeah.
and they're going, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So water quality and the way we sort of treat our natural environment in general compared to the rest of the world is way above average.
Yeah, and I think about when you, because you led with the industry and you talk about this, I think what we are, and especially with industry in Maine, we're seeing more like of the PFAS, right?
Yeah.
Contamination
Yeah.
and stuff like that from industrial uses. We know that that exists in Monmouth, right? That there's that. So,
Yep.
so I agree with you. I think that, you know, the focus obviously has shifted from an industrial to, you know, like you said, sort of stewarding those things. I think that's a good observation.
The other thing I want to come back to trails for a minute.
Mm.
Because one of the strengths that we've got with regard to trails, but with regard to ATVs and snowmobiles, is that we've got a couple of companies. One of them's just across the border in Leeds,
Yeah,
but the other one is in North Monmouth on 202 that sells and maintains ATVs.
no,
And just across the street from that, this is in the 202 district that we're talking about, the TIF district, across the street from that is a restaurant.
Mm.
Right?
yeah,
And you know, is the lumberyard that's being converted to something,
yeah.
furniture, something,
Yeah, yeah,
but it's by a bunch of guys
yeah,
whose demographic is ATV people.
yeah. No, I'm with you. I agree.
So think about this.
Yeah.
If we're talking about
Fostering.
trails, I mean, remember Curly's?
Sure.
I mean,
Right.
Curly's winter business was all about snowmobiles. People would drive their snowmobile to Curly's to have a Sunday
Yeah.
breakfast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, so maybe this is a potential opportunity is to figure out a way to build trails that lead to places where ATVers, snowmobile people and
Yeah.
hikers want to be, want to
Yeah.
spend their money, want to congregate in, particularly in the wintertime. I
Yeah.
think,
The
Yeah.
ITS is a good example of that, right?
and maybe we need to bring in people from, the club,
Yeah.
both
Oh,
the
yeah.
snowmobile and the ATV club,
Mhm.
to sort of help us understand, you know, the biggest bang for our trail buck.
Yeah. How can we-
Where would it go and how would it work in terms of not just for them, but for people outside of Monmouth who might want to come to Monmouth because we've got something
Without a
unique.
doubt. Yeah, I agree. I think that opportunity is there to create, and again, it goes back to outdoors, right? Which is one of our strengths. So,
There is a trail that goes to TJ's.
yeah.
So tell me more.
Thank God.
I don't know about it. Tell me more.
I don't know where it comes from. It comes through the woods and ends there at the.
It's
At
probably a
Edens.
part of the trails. I wonder if it's part, I'm gonna look up the ITS.
Is there anything on the other side of 202?
Other than the Clark Marine.
So that's another good strength. We've got Clark Marine that does servicing of boats, another outdoor activity.
Yeah,
You know, on 202 and within that TIF district that we're talking about.
yeah.
But the trail that
we
goes to
go.
TJ's, does it cross 202 or is it just on one side?
It just comes from North Monmouth. There's trails down there because I've worked on them
Okay,
in the past. Do we consider jack straps a industry or?
yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I would consider that an industry, yeah. I would add that to our. Yeah, I've got just a really crappy
And what
map.
about the apple orchard? How does that? The strength or?
Well, I think if Andy were here, he would be advocating for
Yeah.
any agricultural
Absolutely, absolutely,
activities.
without a doubt.
I mean,
Without a
that's-
doubt. I think that's a total strength of Monmouth. With agricultural aspect.
Right, so apple orchards, organic farming,
Yeah, milks, you know, we
Milk.
got, there's so much farming in Monmouth, it seems. I mean, with the milk house and with orchards, and that's certainly part of the history. I don't know how, like, is it going the way of the industry as well? You know, I don't know, but I know that agriculture in Monmouth is a huge. I think
Tree
it's a
farm.
huge strength, yeah.
right?
The place in South Monmouth that makes beer. Or
Grateful grain, yeah. I would call that manufacturing.
Light
I just have
manufacturing.
to use the restroom. That's- Be right back.
I think we can also talk about where Monmouth is positioned. With it being on, I mean, as compared to other towns, you're right on 202. You're between Augusta and Lewiston. You know, you're kind of the midpoint in between
Sure.
and 202. I mean, you have frontage on 202, you
Right.
know, and that's,
That's like having a river,
yeah, it's your river, basically.
pretty much.
So,
So 202 is a huge asset that we haven't done much with.
and Highmore Farm. Is a,
Under agriculture, put Highmore, yeah.
MOOR.
yes,
Apples cows. Highmore Farm.
Milk.
Apple cows, milk. Highmore Farm's great. I mean, that's a great aspect of Monmouth. I don't know how much it's, you know,
So, I mean, that puts us almost midpoint between Augusta and Lewiston, 25-minute commute.
agreed. It's a huge strength. Are you talking about just the physical location?
Okay.
Yep,
That was gonna be my next one, is it's in the middle of everything. Like you feel like you can get pretty much anywhere from Monmouth fairly easily. I feel. Lewiston, Monmouth, Augusta,
so
This
it's
way,
almost
that
like
way.
we're an exurb.
I would agree.
We're not a suburb, we're not,
Yeah, you
we're,
could
you
be,
know, on the border of rural versus.
Yeah,
suburban.
absolutely, and it's easy to get to 95 from here because of the Sabatis exit. So,
Mhm.
you know, you could do that. There's a lot of people that are looking, I mean, one of the reasons why Lisbon real estate right now, it's all speculative, because there's literally nothing to move into in Lisbon. And one of the biggest selling points is it's easy to get to the interstate, it's easy to get to Lewiston, it's easy,
Brunswick.
yeah, all that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. But I think that's a huge aspect. Yeah, you know, when you look at it in a list, there's a lot of good, I mean, it's really interesting to see because there's arts, there's outdoors, there is entertainment. You know, maybe it's the same thing as ours, but like entertainment and restaurants and dining. It's really interesting to see.
Can we focus a little bit on? And I don't know the answer to this question. Where do we stand with regard to tax rate? Compared to our neighbors?
Yeah, good call,
Like if I own $100,000 house
Mhm.
in Monmouth,
right, what are some of the?
what do I end up having to pay? I mean, and that's a cost benefit because there are gonna be some places where it's not gonna be much because there's no services.
And your mill rate, see, the mill rate is not an accurate way of determining your tax rate. I don't like that. Somebody says, oh, the mill rate's high. It's like, well, that means very little really
Right.
in the overall scheme of things.
Well, it's a mill rate versus what? Versus,
Versus I would say it's the
The
mill,
assessment,
the
right?
mill rate, yeah, the mill rate is merely it's a business formula. It's not a,
Right.
what do you
right,
call it?
because there are some towns that haven't assessed their tax base.
Right,
They don't
and so
always-
it's such a skewed thing, so it's a thermometer of, you know, how you're spending your money rather than how much taxes we have to pay.
So maybe the best way of evaluating the tax rate in Monmouth is to say, what's the average house in Monmouth get taxed at?
Yeah.
What's the dollar amount? Versus that same house in Litchfield or in Leeds
Mhm.
or in Lewiston.
Let's take a look.
And I don't know if we get into that detail, but maybe that's something we could take a look at before we get to the next meeting.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree. I think that'd be great.
If the average house in Monmouth is selling for, I don't know, $250,000, $200,000.
Right, so what we actually want to look at, if I'm not mistaken, and tell me if I'm crazy. But we want to look at what is called full value, right? That's
Yep.
what we want to look at. Estimated full value tax rate, not the mill rate, the estimated full value tax rate. And
Yep.
I can tell you that in Monmouth, currently listed on the website, the 2021 full tax rate of Monmouth was 14.28%. Now that includes homestead exemptions, Betty, which is business equipment,
Right.
and TIF adjustments. So again, that number was 14.28. To give you a sense of surrounding towns, Winthrop, 15.68, Reedfield, 13.38, and Litchfield, 11.34.
How about Leeds?
Leeds, let me take a look. I don't see it on here. Perhaps because is it in Androscoggin County?
Yeah.
Leeds?
All right, how about
So-
Manchester?
Let me do Manchester. Yes, sir. Manchester is a rate of 12.75.
Okay, and
Monmouth again, 14.28.
how about West Gardner?
West
that's the
Gardner
big
is
rock bottom.
8.8.
Rock bottom.
Yeah. The highest is when you get into what I would call service centers. Gardner, 16.8, 16.18. Hollowell, 16.29. Randolph, 15.5. Waterville, 19.8. So you can see in terms of, and Monmouth is I would say right in the middle, 14.28.
It's because of what people have to pay for all that stuff.
And so, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's just it, and again, this formula that we're using is equalized tax rate is derived by dividing the 2021 municipal commitment by the 2023 state valuation with adjustments for homestead and Betty, like we said. So it's the most accurate way of looking at what your tax rate is, not just your mill rate.
So
Whatever
we're somewhat in the middle of
Yes.
the field in terms of tax rate, but
For services offered.
well, I would say if you started to look at some of the services that we offered, every municipality that is below us, maybe Manchester's an exception, but every municipality that below us, except for Manchester, offers way fewer services.
Without a doubt.
Like
Okay,
there is,
Manchester doesn't have a police department.
Manchester doesn't have a
offer
police
all
department.
that Stuff.
really,
Without a doubt. I mean, no, Monmouth offers more than I think a lot of the people on here.
so Manchester didn't have a police department?
Manchester has no police. They have two fire stations, or at least one right there in town. And they don't have a rescue squad. I
And
think
they
they do,
Do they have a high school?
they do with Winthrop. They do
No,
not
they-
have a
they-
high school.
they
It's
go
part
to
of
Winthrop.
RSU 38, yeah. But if we take a look at something, let's say something like Mount Vernon, right? Mount Vernon doesn't have nearly any of the, they don't even have their own transfer station because they use the one with Reedfield. Mount Vernon is 13.03.
Oh, my goodness.
So they're only
Neck
a
and neck.
percentage point less than us, but offer so to me, just what I'm reading, my simple brain, I see that Monmouth's overall tax rate is 14.28 for all of the stuff that you get. I think that's
Pretty good deal. Right, cost benefit.
I think it's
analysis.
pretty good. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna say,
So it's kind of the
You know what I
cost
mean? you
benefit
got a good
of our,
spot going here, Doug.
cost benefit of our taxes versus services
Like-
is above average.
I would agree with that. I would say above average is a safe, I mean, Winthrop, think about Winthrop is the seat of all of those things. Police, fire, all of that stuff, and they are 15.68. So it's commensurate with the level of that they're giving. It goes up, they're more than a percentage and a half of us.
Mm,
So I think there is a lot of good aspects to Mon in terms of that. But I also think a weakness, if I may,
I was gonna
of
say, we might
Mon.
wanna move over to weaknesses
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah, one of the weaknesses is also tied to those services. Because I feel like a lot of the municipal time goes towards managing those services. Does that make sense? And the town, part of the issue with the town office is you only get 32 hours, right? So sometimes it's hard to, we provide a lot of services, but there's also some like weird gaps. You know what I mean? Like some weird gaps.
give us some examples.
I think that having a 32-hour week can deter some workers from applying for municipal jobs, and like, for example, in the thing. But it also can be a good thing for some folks, because you get Fridays off, you get those, so I think it's a little bit, it's a little bit, the gap exists in the idea that there's all of these services and
We are spread thin.
it's hard to staff to create them. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We're
So-
seeing that with the Public Works Director, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I would say municipally. I mean, this is just my perspective.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of others.
That's why.
We spend a lot of time reacting to crises and not really planning for the future. Like,
I
oh
agree.
my God, that bridge is gonna fall apart. Let's go fix it. Oh, that culvert washed out, time to get it repaired.
Yeah.
Oh, the dam's broken. Okay, now that it's broken, let's fix it.
Reactionary, yes.
And
I
not
agree.
a whole lot of proactive, like, can you tell me all the assets that we have in town and how old they are and when they're scheduled to wear out and what we ought to be.
Capital plan.
Well, we've got something we call a capital plan, but it's a wish list of things that we're gonna spend money on. We
Yeah.
think we're gonna spend money on in the future until reality, the reality rubber hits the road, and then all of a sudden, oh God, that culvert that leads to Jellystone, that's gonna be a $300,000-$400,000 expense, and we can't say no.
And and that, would you say that there's a history of that?
Oh, yeah.
In,
I mean,
not just maybe just Monmouth, but everywhere, but certainly here. I've seen it. over the
well,
years,
I
right?
mean, some of it is that some of it is, we have a little bit of turnover and we don't have like the institutional knowledge that says, like Herb Whittier was an amazing public works director.
Absolutely.
Because he was there for 30 years and you ask him like, when do we need to be worried about the Anabescook Lake Dam? And he'd say, well, we did that in 1991 with the resurfacing of the dam. And then in 2005, we did the recovering of the behind the dam.
Right.
I mean, he could tell you.
Somebody knew.
So now we get, turnover 3 or 4 times. We don't have the institutional knowledge. We don't have the people who were sort of doing the long range capital planning in their head. And then we get surprises that are $500,000 surprises, like, like
Like Doug.
No.
Oh.
Like the culvert that leads to
Yeah.
Jellystone.
Yeah.
Where, the thing was repaired with a Band-Aid in 1980 something or other, and
Yeah.
the Band-Aid broke.
It just,
But still, any kind of stuff that we would plan for in the future, like thinking of the Jellystone Dam, not dam, the culvert, it's money. And we're spending money to, as it is, to try to catch up with the salt shed.
oh, yeah.
Well, we've been talking about the salt shed for like
Oh,
4 years,
yeah.
5
Money
years.
is,
Well,
money's money.
decades,
Decades, exactly, because they're long one.
right? Decades. We've been talking about, this is a good example. The whole issue of the salt shed and what do they call that? Priority something.
The salt priority.
Salt priority, right? Salt priority is this idea that, and it's in a nutshell, part of our problem in Monmouth.
Please tell me.
So salt priority is this idea that you pre-treat the roads
Uh-huh.
before snowfall,
Sure.
rather than just wait for the snow to fall and then plow them.
Yeah.
And they've been doing, across Maine, they've been doing salt priority since the early 2000s.
Mm.
And we have said, no, we're Maine. This is Maine. We can just keep doing, wait for the snow to fall and then we'll plow it out of the way. Well, the reality of it is,
We can't afford, we always put it,
Mhm.
we
Mm.
put it off.
Yeah.
In order to do salt priority, you have to have a salt shed.
Mhm.
A salt shed costs
Buddy, I'm
$400,000 to $600,000.
speaking the language.
And it also has a maintenance cost where you gotta, every 20 years, you got to replace something.
Yeah.
And we just can't get in front of, the advantage of salt priority is, perfect example is all the feedback we get when it snows and the town of Litchfield has bare pavement and the town of Monmouth has an inch of ice.
Why is Richfield so much better?
Because they do salt priority.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Right? Or Winthrop does the same thing. They do salt priority,
Yeah.
In Wales,
yeah,
they do
it's
salt
everywhere.
priority. right?
Yeah,
But we can't because we can't make the investment in a salt shed
right.
because
thing
we're
that- yeah.
running around chasing our tail,
One thing's connected to the other.
replacing
Yeah.
culverts to Jellystone, or, I mean, a couple
I'm
of years
with you.
back, it was
I'm with
the Wilson Pond Road culvert
Yeah,
that broke loose and we had to do something.
Yeah.
Cause cars are gonna fall into the stream.
so then let me ask you this, it sounds like a lot of this, is roads, infrastructure.
yes.
Would
Well-
you say that the infrastructure of Monmouth and that's where, is that a weakness that as you see it?
Well, I would say yes and no.
Okay, okay.
I would say infrastructure, we've got a lot of it. We don't plan ahead for it. It's being worn away, not just by use, but by changes in our weather,
Yes, sir.
right?
Understood.
I mean, anyone who wants to drive down Wagon Road,
I was gonna say, the Wagon Road.
if
I got
the
caught a
bridge is
couple
still
times.
open.
Yeah, if I got a couple, to my mother-in-law's, I was like, oh, dang it, and I had to turn around.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
because the bridge gets closed periodically,
Yeah.
because the water level comes up.
What do you?
Because it's never been that high before, because there's a problem with the dam and because there's 5-inch rainstorm that happens in a 24-hour period 3
Right.
times this year.
One thing down
And-
the road.
And then the road falls apart because someone did some development at the top of the hill that's creating more runoff. The ditches aren't ready for receiving runoff.
Yeah.
And the ditch goes into the road and takes out the tar. And now
And
we're applying for emergency relief to $26,000 road repair.
yeah,
So,
infrastructure. Nah, I agree.
so
I
it's
hear you.
infrastructure, and I would say the threat that we've got is a changing climate.
Climate change has affected Monmouth, would you say? Hard not,
You can't snowmobile in December. Not happening,
not anymore.
okay?
No.
We've got people with docks on lakes that are floating away. The docks end up on the other side of the
Yeah.
lake.
Cognawaga is the same thing, right? Cognawaga is having dam issues, so it does seem like, so then
Um,
that's one of the things that I
Our
feel
infrastructure-
like
I mean,
there's more infrastructure issues
listen.
in Monmouth.
we spent, this was back in, Doug will know this one better than I do, because it was before my time. But we spent $500,000 replacing the culvert on the Sanborn Road. And it was because we had to upgrade it.
Yeah.
You remember that? This was about 10 years ago. We had to upgrade it. It was a 3 or 4 year project. We had to save up money to be able to do that.
Yeah.
To raise the road bed so that enough water would go through there and the road would stop flooding. So, I mean, this is
Yeah, it's,
incessant.
yeah, it's one thing after the other. And, yeah, I'm with you. I feel you. I hear you. infrastructure, keeping up with the things, yeah. Is there a small business loan? Is there like a business organization? Okay.
They're supposed to be.
So I would wonder about like the efficacy of the existing business programs. Right? If they're are they being utilized? Do people know? I think also what I would tie that into is part of what I hope comes out of this committee or the work of this committee is to make sure people know how they can use the TIF money, right? Isn't that kind of what we're doing? And we want to make sure, and I think that's good to have.
When we're talking about all of this, I'm wondering, since we all didn't quite know everything, marketing in the town. Marketing the town, marketing in the town, information being disseminated in town, whether you think that might be a weakness.
I think the best thing that's happened since I've been in town is the new seal, like having a logo, having a marketable thing. But I would say no. I would say that the communication, municipal communication is a weakness of Monmouth.
Really? Tell me more.
There is no current system in place to send widespread alerts or any type of messaging system that you can go to and sign up for and get emails. There's no system you can sign up that you can get text messages when for some reason, maybe the transfer station closes down.
That's a thing?
Not Facebook.
That is an absolute thing. Facebook is not as good. I feel like when things change quickly at the town office, it is it is
Cell
limited
sites.
in the way that it gets
We've
disseminated.
gotten some complaints about,
And
oh,
it's
we had to close for such and such
right,
and
and there's no,
people show up and
it's
the
nobody's
door's locked.
fault. It's just
Right.
there is no mechanism to send widespread alerts in the town of Monmouth.
Let me tell you though, I mean, that might still be a weakness where we can take a few steps forward and I'm interested to know more about that.
Yeah.
But compared to where we were 5 years ago.
Oh,
this
without
is
a
night
doubt.
and day.
I mean, just the fact that the website is updated.
Exactly.
That's amazing. The fact that the Facebook page is updated, absolutely. But I feel like now it's
Well,
time to
the
level
fact that
up.
we're on Zoom,
Oh,
that we've got recorded meetings, that we've
Forget it.
got transparency about when
I love it.
the agenda is happening and it gets posted.
Yeah.
in a
It's an
timely way.
amazing thing. If you
Yeah.
notice, I mean, like, I was, buddy, I was here when we started first Zooming all of the select board meetings.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how, within a few months, within a year of broadcasting the Zoom meetings, there was already turnover in the select. board.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like, once people start seeing and what's going on, then they're engaged more. I'm all for it. I just feel like the communication to the citizens could be better.
Okay,
That's
So-
all.
so some sort of like automated,
Yeah, there's tons of services, like Reedfield does one where you put your cell phone number in and the administrator of the system can push out notifications to your cell phone. So you get, a town office is closing today at 11:30. And that
Okay.
way, everybody gets it on their phone because presumably everybody has a phone, not everybody uses Facebook. Yes.
Events, which I know we all know it's.
Yes,
But
absolutely, absolutely. But I like this because, it's easy to come up with some strengths. The weaknesses I'm having to like be a little bit nitpicky with.
that's okay.
You know what I mean? Because I feel like there's so many good things about Monmouth. So many good things. And the weaknesses are, I think, institutional, right?
What about, what if we talk about maybe gaps in business? I know we've always
Well-
talked about another restaurant.
Yeah. Downtown area.
A downtown
I think
area
the
restaurant.
downtown area has a very, very serious threat of just becoming one giant museum. And I love it. I think it's great to have but it's like, if there's no place for people to go after they visit the two museums, you know what I mean? Like,
Then what?
what are they gonna do, The fact that that bank is still empty is a sin.
Yeah,
But they want the some guy wanted, on Facebook.
Nope.
He wanted to know about a place that to open in town because he's in that business.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to the bank, he said he looked into it and they want too much.
I would say that there is a reason
Yeah.
that it is sat there. Then that's when the municipal part is how, is there something that could happen? Is there a way that to entice? I'm sure that just leasing it out, still leasing the ATM to bank or savings is lucrative, must be.
Yeah.
And then there's sorry.
Nope, I was just,
on that.
daycares. Do you guys have any daycares in town that are more than just like, in-home?
On 202, I think there's one or two.
There's a few, but there are a few, but I would say they are like a mom and pop type of thing. There's a physical therapy place. There's fireworks. too.
So one gap that I would suggest is a big one. We have an aging population in Monmouth. But we don't have a recreation department that is focused on older activities.
One of the things that came up at a meeting just recently was the utilization of this space. And
It's
having,
underutilized.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it's absolutely, and with so there's this building, there's that building.
Coming online.
There's that building, there's,
Yep.
it's like, there could be a fitness room somewhere that could be offered to
Something.
people, yeah.
Yeah, older adults or even inside activities in the wintertime.
Monmouth I know, do you know about the age-friendly committee, which is official now?
I've heard of it.
Okay, it's, so Monmouth, age-friendly Monmouth is meeting regularly now. Doug, you're on that, right? And that's a huge focus for them. AARP program is what this is. Are you familiar with this age-friendly committee?
I've heard of it,
Okay,
yes.
so basically you submit to AARP, you become an official chapter. And then what you do is you meet with your group to try to figure out ways that you can have age-friendly activities, trails, spaces. They do things like make sure that if elderly folks can't get to the transfer station, they'll bring them a thing of sand. Neighbors driving neighbors is also a part of the age-friendly. So I think you're absolutely right. That's a huge concern, and that's been mentioned by them before.
Yeah, well, and the other weakness that I think we have, and we've heard this over and over again, is people are getting priced out or aging out of their homes that are too large, and they've got no place to go.
Mm.
They don't have enough, we do not have affordable housing for people who want to stay and want to age in the same community where they live. What I
Yeah.
mean is, there's a lot of folks who's, empty nesters, the house is too big. They could sell, but there's nothing to purchase that's small enough, that's appropriate size for them in Monmouth, and that's at an affordable price.
Any
Right.
condos or no condos?
There's no.
Well, I mean, we've got apartments, but they're all full.
The center apartments are full. The housing stock in Monmouth is limited.
So there are not very many vacant apartments, and there's certainly nothing under construction.
There's no plans. My biggest thing in that would be, does Monmouth have a companion dwelling ordinance or
Yeah.
outlook in terms of,
on
if
apartments.
I wanted to put, if I have 4 acres and I want to put a tiny house for my mom and a tiny house for my brother, can we do that? And I think that, to me, that's where we're starting. The smartest thing I've seen happen there on Main Street is where they're taking that trailer park and turning it actually into a tiny home park. They're getting the old, that sort of stigma, and it's great because they're just small little double, they're great home, but I think that's a great example of ways to sort of innovate like that.
Yeah.
I know this would never happen in Monmouth, but, the idea of zoning,
Does Monmouth not have zoning?
We have, no, We have shoreline zoning and that's it. No zoning.
Oh my God. Oh my God, oh my God. I have no idea.
You can't tell me what I can do with my property.
Yeah.
Oh,
We've got,
heavens.
we've got a
Oh,
very
I think
sort of,
that's a weakness as I drive down. certain
Yes.
areas of
Oh my
town,
God.
But
So there's no, is there a land use ordinance?
there's a construction ordinance, right? There's the
Yeah.
comprehensive development ordinance.
Right.
Which,
But like in terms of setbacks and things like
yeah,
that?
so there's,
Okay, okay.
that's covered in our comprehensive development.
Okay, okay, gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
But what it means is occasionally we get folks who want to change the use of a property and it gets all of their neighbors all worked up.
Ah,
And
okay.
I mean, most times it gets worked out. But there are a lot of times when it causes a lot of controversy in town. Let me give you an example. This was about 15, 20 years ago. We had someone who wanted to propose like a water park on on Copsey Lake. A water park on a parcel of land on the southern end of Copsey Lake. Right? They were gonna put in this, I mean, this
Mhm,
was
mhm.
like a multi-million-dollar project. It was gonna put a lot of traffic on the lake. There was a bunch of tree cutting going on down
Oh
there.
my,
There was a
okay.
lot of,
Okay. we're just
people
getting it
got
going.
really worked up.
Oh, my
And
God.
this particular developer had the law on his side
Oh,
because we had no zoning ordinances.
bam, well, no shit.
And
Oh,
so,
sorry. Sorry,
the
municipal.
mistake, yeah, we're on record here.
I'm sorry about that.
The mistake he made was he got everyone so worked up. He crossed the line on a couple of little issues like
Yeah.
tree cutting in the
Yeah.
shoreline zone, and then all of a sudden people lowered the boom on him. But we got lucky in Monmouth. We got lucky because at the last minute, he had a health crisis and decided to sell.
So what regulates, what pretends to be your zone? Like nothing? Like, oh my God. So if I wanted to put a pig farm right downtown,
You could do it.
The
Oh my
pla-
God.
the planning
If
board
you
does
had,
that.
sure,
if,
yeah.
if
that's
you
what I
had
do it.
thick enough skin and you had, to ignore
Yeah,
your neighbors.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you knew all the nuances of the comprehensive development ordinance and could comply with every single one of them. And you'd probably need to bring in some expensive lawyers to make sure that you were thoroughly,
Yeah, Yeah.
insulated from anyone who wanted to give you a problem. But with no zoning ordinances, then there's a lot of bad things that could happen.
Oh, just
man, that
the few
is
summer camps
wild.
Count as a strength. Like.
Summer camps?
Pickleball. up-
Yeah,
Sure.
I would agree with that.
And.
Well,
what
because it's
about the,
outdoor stuff.
What about the solar farm?
I would call that a strength. I mean,
It's a controversial. There's gonna be a lot of people who would not.
it's funny. Because, again, I view solar like I do cannabis, regardless of how you feel about it personally, it's going that way, right? It's going that way.
Yeah, but
You're,
you gotta understand though, that in the eyes of people in Monmouth, some of our strengths are the things that we have held on to,
oh,
managed to
okay.
hold on to
Gotcha.
in the face of a changing world.
Okay, I see. So you're saying that in some instances, the sort of that static, that is embraced. Okay. Well, I mean,
think
just
there are a
not
lot of
having a
people who
sound,
would say that.
like that gives me, I can't, I'm like, I have anxiety, just like listening to, like, just thinking about in my municipal history, how having zoning saved so much, just saved so much. I get, yeah. Now, and that's why people say like, well, why is the old church now smell like weed all the time? Because they could do that, right? They could just go in and change it. And there was no site visit, none of that.
But Reed Field with their zoning,
Yeah,
that's caused all kinds of heartache for some people. And you.
Trust me, that's what I'm saying, like, because the zoning was in place, there was a great number of issues that were coming at me personally about that. But what was great was the zoning was the zone there. So no matter how much stuff that I got personally, it was always, well, this is the way it's zoned. This is why it is zoned that way. And that was protective of the neighbors in that area. So despite whether or not, you have a thick skin, you got a lot of money and lawyers, I've seen that play out in town when people were trying to do stuff that you didn't want.
So I don't, our lack of zoning, I'm not ready to call it a strength or a weakness yet.
Fine, fine.
Because there are a lot of people, and to some degree, I'm one of them, where problems get solved with neighbors interacting with neighbors rather than having to make a rule for it that has to be written down and
hear what
there's
you're
very
saying.
little room for
I hear
negotiation.
what you're saying, but your faith in man is like
was gonna say,
amazing.
And what I'd say was, if you're looking at it from an economic development perspective.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's very
It's a nightmare.
hard to allocate resources to an area where there's 3 houses, a pig farm,
A mishmash of all
yeah,
this
like
other stuff.
a auto,
Right.
someone
There's no critical
fixing
mass.
cars and,
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
you can't create a business a district or protect people who might just want to like have their homes and, not worry about.
not
I see what you're saying.
Right.
That's amazing. That is
Sports
amazing. That's
fields.
amazing.
How would that fit in? Strength?
Oh, sports fields?
Yep.
The company up in-
Oh, yeah,
Or-
definitely, definitely.
So anyway.
Okay, we got this. I don't want,
want.
yeah.
I was gonna say, it's 7:30,
Yeah.
almost 7:40.
About right.
What I can do is write this up and send it to everyone, especially those people who weren't here.
Yeah.
See
See if they have the add or subtract.
Yeah, see if there's some ads.
Yeah.
And then we can start, and I mean, I think this is good because, at this point, what I think is interesting is, we did it for one. What are some of the things that we have here that we might start being able to pair? And when I was talking about marketing, just the idea of, what would it look like if the town did an outdoor, recreational weekend where you had, Clark Marine and Jack's Traps and ATV business sponsoring some sort of a, showcase or,
Yeah.
and people were here using trails and, I mean, how can we build on events
Yeah.
and strengths that bring people into town more than
Just the ones that are.
the ones that we have, which are great, but what else can we do to kind of make Monmouth the location for certain things that people think,
Agreed,
oh, Monmouth.
Well, this is ice fishing derby that,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
let's
see.
do any
Travis
event.
puts on and
I love that sort of thing, just, I think about like that Iron Man
Yeah.
thing in Augusta. I think that's a really, regardless of how you measure the economic impact, it's something,
Oh,
right?
huge.
It's something.
It is
There's
huge.
people that take it very seriously. There's people that really, and that to me is, I don't know if Monmouth could ever attract that, but there's certainly capacity in Monmouth to create those. Right? We already have the 5K. It's part of Apple Fest. That's a huge deal, outdoor recreation. We used to do, there was, at one point, the Friends were doing a mile run during Mayfair, which was kind of a interesting, you start at the school and you run down to Compton. That was it. But I think that the capacity for doing more things like that, it exists. I think there can be more opportunities. The fact that there's not a haunted Compton Hall, missing out opportunity, but we can't do it all ourselves. So we would need to look through
Find someone to-
multi-agencies, through the high school, through this, to say, it's the best building to have be haunted, right? Because it already is. Holiday events, I love that.
Forgetting the,
And,
Monmouth
and I
Fair.
mean, just in terms.
Oh my God, the Monmouth Fame.
Monmouth Fair, put it on the strengths,
Yeah,
Just in terms of the.
right next to agriculture.
yes, please.
Would you say what's?
Monmouth Fair.
Monmouth Fair.
Um,
Clam suggestions.
in terms of the Ironman, it's amazing. I mean, the people from Canada who come to Augusta, Maine, or from all over the country coming to Augusta, Maine, and they just think we're some sort of utopia, you
Right.
know, and like the Kennebec River is
Right
so
there on the river,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, it's I mean, just even walking around listening to people and just how good, Capitol Park, people were all out with their blankets on Capitol Park, waiting for their, you know, family members to finish the Ironman. I mean, it's
Yeah.
such great marketing for Central Maine.
And
you know,
there's so much stuff. You could, I mean, Doug, you know this. We could have a triathlon right here in Monmouth.
We have.
That's what I thought there. I've certainly
We've
there
done,
was.
Nance and I used to do a apple blossom race. That
Sure.
was, a 15K.
Amazing.
Starting, right down the road here, and Monmouth Fair has done some little racing things.
Yeah, there was some stuff there. But it can happen. You know what I mean? One of the things when you look at those strengths, you know, the natural resources, we got plenty of bodies of water. I love, one of my favorite things is that goofy ass cardboard boat
Yeah.
thing that happens. I love it. What a cool thing to do just because it's fun,
Right.
right? And kids get involved, adults get involved, some people, you know what I
Parent,
mean? Yeah. Goofy little things like that where you know, you don't know how it's gonna work out, but it ends up being a part of
and
your.
it's like no cost. It's like a couple $100 of duct tape is what that is.
Yes, yes, but think about all of the ancillary benefits of bringing your community together,
Right.
being the reigning cardboard boat champion of the beach party, you know, that stuff is just it's a draw. I think.
So things like Apple Fest.
Yeah.
I've got one more weakness.
Showcases our thing.
I've got one more weakness.
Do it.
We have, how many lakes do we have in town?
5.
Anabescook,
Coxsey,
Cobussy,
Cocknoquan, Wilson, and
Torsi.
Torsi.
Yeah,
Not Torsi.
uh,
Torsi's
Ta- Tacoma.
Tacoma.
Oh,
Okay.
good call, yeah.
We
Tacoma,
got 5
yeah.
lakes in town.
Yeah.
The star of the town in Monmouth is Cocknoquan. And part of it
That's
is
true.
because it's completely surrounded. It's the only of all of those lakes.
And it's right there in the middle, right?
It's right there in the middle. It's
Yep.
super convenient. My opinion. I think because of that, the other lakes from the town's perspective, from Monmouth's perspective, are underutilized
Hmm.
for public purposes.
I would agree.
So, Annabeth Cobussy, Wilson, and Tacoma. I mean, Tacoma is almost an afterthought because it's mostly in Litchfield. It's only 10% of the coastline.
Yeah.
20%
Yeah.
is in Monmouth.
But I think you're right. I think the active end of Cobussy is on the Manchester side.
Right. Yeah,
And-
it's a
and-
ghost town on the southern end. of the
Yeah,
coast,
and Winthrop, yeah, I absolutely agree.
Right?
And it's just too.
I mean,
it's
and
lakes.
Annabeth almost all the activity happens on the north end.
Yep.
It's Winthrop centric.
Agreed.
And with Tacoma, it's Litchfield centric.
So there's really like no kind of Monmouth centric body of water except Cocknoquan.
Exactly. But when it comes to opportunities, we could consider that a weakness and an opportunity,
Agreed,
because
agreed.
I look at, what's happening. I mean, again, one of the things that makes Maine completely different from most other places. I've read somewhere in the literature that we rank in the 99th percentile of the United States for water quality.
Mm.
99th. So it's not surprising to hear people coming from Canada or far-flung places. I mean, I get them from like
Yeah.
Singapore and,
Yeah.
across the world. Like
Yeah.
one time I had Chinese people show up and they wouldn't go in the lake. And I'm like, how come you're not swimming in the lake? And they're like, oh, in China, you don't swim in the lakes.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
They wouldn't get it. It wasn't until I got in the lake
Yeah.
that they got in the lake. So
It's
Uh,
a huge thing.
And when they left, I'm like, hey, don't forget to tell people at home that it's normal to swim in a lake. We, the quality of our coastline is unsurpassed. And people, even the stuff that we think of as kind of meh, they look at it and go, oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, because you
This
get
is amazing.
blind to it. You get blind to it a little bit. It's quality of life.
So that might actually be an opportunity in terms of thinking about, I mean, we can start to connect some dots here, but I
Yeah,
give
you
Dan a lot of,
absolutely can.
I
It's-
give Dan a lot of credit for setting up the Monmouth Beach Party.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would say is, look, this is a success. How can we build on it?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, is there something called the Maine Lake Fest?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Does anyone do anything like that?
the Main Lake Festival. I don't know. But I'm sure, but it does bring, because it does bring identity to your community. The Yarmouth Clam Festival, right? That's a fun, you're gonna go to the Blues Festival in Rockland. Those are things that bring, you know what I mean? Stuff like that, I think is huge for
It's a
identity.
lobster festival.
Lobster Festival, yeah. We should do a lobster festival in Monmouth. I could crack a few. I'll tell you.
Is there such a thing as a freshwater lobster?
Yeah, they're called crawdads. Good bait, bad eat. No, I'm kidding.
All right.
This is good. I like this. I appreciate this. This is good for learning about.
So
all this
maybe
stuff.
what I'll do is write this up and then put this document online. So if people want to, and everyone can edit it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see what else
Yeah.
can be added, and
Wow.
I'll
Nice.
let Dan loose on it too,
Yeah.
and, especially.
Right.
And we can talk next meeting about, fleshing out opportunities a little more. So, yes, sorry, yeah, so. That's good.
Good.
Monmouth Milk
Thank you.
Fest, Milk Fest.
Milk Fest Monmouth. Come on, right? It's a churning good time.
Yeah.
We'll butter you up.
One
Sorry,
thing
sorry.
that I thought might be, so what I did.
I'm reaching the end. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I was gonna say,
Yes,
what, the other thing we had on our agenda was the TIF budget proposal for
Oh, yeah.
2025.
Yep.
Fiscal year 25. And the reason I put that after the SWOT analysis was because I was hoping things like trails and, events and where do we want our TIF dollars to
To be
go? Right.
I would respectfully say we should probably, after we've,
Yeah.
maybe next meeting or after, sort of have that in the thing. Okay, yeah.
So,
I think the budget process would allow us one more month.
I would like,
Um,
yeah, I think that would be good.
and I don't know how
Okay.
formally you've put together your TIF budget in the past,
We have
but
not.
What?
that's what I
TIF
thought,
budget?
because
Yeah.
when I was looking at the TIF budget,
Oh,
honest, like the categories don't really line up with
Right.
the.
Yeah.
So I don't even,
Oh, yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
So
kind
this
of-
is new. This is a
No,
new
it's good.
process for this committee and the town manager has graciously sort of relied on our recommendations.
Yeah.
So he's held off for us considering what's going
I-
on in the TIP budget
Yeah.
until we can
Great.
make some sort of.
It's a-
And I think some of it will be,
Especially with this committee. That, what we're doing right now has really made a big change. We did what we do. what we did
I
in the past.
agree. I absolutely agree.
and I mean, the priority is, I think, is often to try and take even small pieces of your municipal budget and put them in the TIF budget. So, there were some things we added like staff salary, we definitely want to take X percentage of your town manager's salary, even if it's, $5,000 and
And put
use
it in
TIF
there.
revenues, for
Yep.
that, so things like that. You
So
just
we
want
talked
to-
about a couple little details. One was the town manager's salary, some portion of it.
Yep.
Another
assessor.
one was fire protection
Yep.
for the substation.
Yep.
So a certain percentage of the fire department.
Some sort of. Yes, and what we can talk about specifically what you can offset from the fire department's budget. That were our TIF revenues, because
Okay.
it's very, rather, I think it's equipment. So, to the extent that Dan replaces equipment every year, which I'm sure he does.
you know, this
Yeah,
is something that
that's
can
right.
come out of your regular budget.
What were some of the other details? Because I think there were more than two, though.
Let's see, well, you already have some of them already working, so, there's a bond for the the streetscape facade, downtown streetscape improvements. Is already something that's been used, TIP funds have been used for. Recreational trails. Yeah, I think there's some that the TIP funds have already been being
Yep.
used for, so. But we will certainly look at that a little more next.
Next time.
Yeah.
Move to adjourn.
Before we.
Dang it.
You can't move.
I know, I was trying to slip it right in there. I can't move, I can't vote, I'm just here to talk. Okay.
Have we heard anything from, before we adjourn, have we heard anything from Wish Rock?
No, he was, he said he talked to the people, I guess this Academy Road property he had talked about. Had recently been sold to someone else and they weren't interested in selling. Oh, wow, and they weren't interested in selling. So, yeah, he said he was going to continue to look at the Main Street property and kind of tweak his.
This is
plan.
the open space there near the end, yeah,
Yeah.
from the apartments.
But we're still talking and I check in, I send him an email every once in a while and just say,
Hey,
we're still
sup,
here, we're still
sup?
there, we still need housing, so think of us.
Yeah,
He had done a development going for that piece of property, and it was really far seeing. Because it was all rural housing.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
Tiny house park, I'm telling you.
and but he couldn't get funding, something.